Boom, I'm alive. Good evening and welcome back. Wasp Weekly number 3. I do apologise that we weren't able to do it last night, but hey, just a day late. Let's hope we don't get an autist in the comments counting of how many seconds that we're late, of course. Treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen. So, this is Wasp, and joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Lady Susan.
Sure, hello.
Good evening. And, right, well, we'll let you guys jump in as you wish, give you a few moments before we get into the articles which we have for you today. So, as always, we'll be going over the things that didn't quite make the cut throughout last week, but have, despite that, maintained prominence throughout the week and are worth just touching on at the end of the week, even if that is then the start of the next week. But that's what we'll be doing today, and of course engaging with you all in the chat, given that YouTube does not seem to like me replying to comments. It just tends to freeze, and I do apologise for that. I am working on workarounds as we speak. Of course, hopefully, after YouTube and several Google services went down a few hours ago, that they'll be back up and running, and maybe that'll fix some things, and we'll get some official line out of it soon. But welcome to you all. And now we're here. Without further ado, we will crack on. So, first one, German lockdown. Merkel announces tough new COVID curbs. Chancellor Angela Merkel has said stores, schools and daycare centres will close in the run-up to Christmas. The new rules, agreed with Germany's 16 state leaders, will come into effect from Wednesday. And this is one that you brought up yourself?
Yes, so we're going back into more lockdowns, and Germany, of course, being the first to kind of lead the way. And as far as I know, pretty much only food shops will be open. And I am not surprised if England follows suit. I think we have another, what is it called? Basically, they're going to review our situation with lockdown on the 16th of December, and they're going to tell us what's going to happen for Christmas and New Year's, but I wouldn't be surprised if they follow suit.
So, on the back of that, of course, Demonic Rab said that they wouldn't change what they've stated over Christmas, that you do still have your protective bauble, but that things will be closed New Year's Eve going into New Year's Day, and therefore, you know, you can't do anything fun for New Year's Eve. You can't try and see in the new year with any optimism. That has to be beaten out of you. Over Christmas, sure, you can have a quiet time together, but you can't do anything substantial to welcome in the new year.
And you're not allowed to buy fireworks either, so...
In Germany.
No one here as well, isn't it?
In the UK as well, okay.
Or maybe I just remember it from this article, maybe.
And of course, well...
No, I think it was in England, actually.
Well, yeah, because hopefully people have still got some stuff kept over from 5th of November, even if it's just sparklers.
Yeah, sparklers will be just fine.
Just get
Or just get some candles outside and pray.
You'll be needing it. Just get those long exposure shots, and you can make all sorts of lovely images. And that's about it. So, the new restrictions in Germany say all non-essential shops and services will close until 10th of January, including hairdressers, which remained open under the current lockdown light. Waiting for the new patch updates for that. The schools are urged to send students home and continue lessons online, as well as extend the winter break until January 10th. Sounds good to me. Go sledding. Daycare centres will also close, but parents will be able to take paid holidays in order to look after their children. Who's paying for that? Oh, the parents. Right, so it's not paid then, surely. It's just you're not going to get fired. Employers are encouraged to allow employees to work from home. Good luck with all the deliveries. People will not be allowed to drink alcohol in public. Not much has changed there then. Religious events in churches, synagogues and mosques may take place if they follow hygiene rules, but communal singing is not allowed. Good luck to the mosques to follow hygiene rules. States still plan to ease stricter contact restrictions for December 24th through to 26th, Eve through to Boxing Day, so the close family members can spend Christmas together. A household may, during this time, invite up to 4 adults from other households, but only from the immediate family, plus any number of children under 14. So yeah, schools have to close because hey, children are going to be spreading it around. But you can have as many children as you want around your place.
And they don't
'Cause
have to be yours.
that makes sense. That's the old German tradition of taking in unknown children.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people that you invite have to be from the immediate family because they're going to be checking. That makes a difference to the virus if your immediate family's there or not. Apparently, and people may not purchase fireworks for New Year's Eve.
Mm.
And of course, if you're feeling ill, isolate for a week beforehand to be safe. Of course.
I just like that the Christmas celebrations include a lot of carol singing and things like that, but that of course isn't allowed because that will spread the virus, so you just stand there and celebrate in silence, please.
And not too much celebrating either. Let's not get carried away.
Contain yourself.
Control the virus, contain yourself, save misery. Perfect. Speaking of which, over in the UK, we might remember from earlier on in the week, with Matt Hancock breaking down in his crocodile tears on Good Morning Britain as grandmother 90 becomes first person in the world to get approved COVID jab, with William Shakespeare, 81, not far behind. And of course, what did William Shakespeare say about all this hoo-ha? He said, well, this was much ado about nothing. I mean, fair enough. With a name like that, you got to make the most of it. So we've seen the vaccinations go underway this week, and they have not gone off without a hitch. They're trying to say, oh, it's V-Day. So, well, we have a VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, and that's the only V-Day I care about. So your vaccination day can fuck off. As far as I'm concerned, the V for V-Day just stands for vendetta, as we all know that V is for vendetta. But they have not gone off without a hitch. As I say, people have had allergic reactions. Not full-blown anaphylaxis, but anaphylactoid. What does that mean? It means that the vaccines have to be administered where a ventilation or resuscitation machine is available. They always need to carry EpiPens as well for the adrenaline shot, just in case people do have that sort of reaction and they aren't able to breathe anymore. They do have to be administered. And instead of it being like a 2-minute job, now it's 15 minutes. That, of course, people still have to keep their masks and isolation during that time period as well. So not quite as ideal as they'd hoped. And that's just in the UK before it's rolling out into the US. I think they're hoping for it over the next few days, in fact. By the end of the week is the US hope. But let's not forget the unconsidered consequences, which is for people who are in those high-risk groups who are, of course, not supposed to mix with any members of their household or see their family at all. And that is for people like this mother here. Well, it says, Corona's cruel twist means this will be my last Christmas, but I will make it our best ever. Inspiring vow of mother with terminal cancer whose surgery was cancelled by pandemic. And it almost comes back to the old Stalin quote to say that one death is a tragedy, but a million is a statistic. That often with so many deaths happening and so many people affected, that we lose track that, yeah, but every single one of these numbers is still an individual living their own life in kind of a sonder moment, if you will. And so by saying, well, we've had to defer all these surgeries and these elective procedures have had to be postponed, that does mean that you've had more cancer deaths than COVID, of course. More excess cancer deaths than COVID. More avoidable cancer deaths than COVID. And it's the repeated question along all of this, which is, but is it really worth it? And often with things like this, you've got to say surely no, and surely it's down to the individual to decide for themselves, and that is of course what the lady here, Beth Purvis, who says she's prepared for this Christmas with the kind of military planning that many mothers employ. So, perfect presents for our 2 children been sourced, festive traditions in a family's case, a table called the Christmas Fair, piled high with everyone's favourite sweets and chocolates, laid out at the start of December but strictly not to be touched until Christmas Day, have been faithfully observed to the delight of her husband Richard, 49, son Joseph, 12, and daughter Abby, 10. So, she's been going through in meticulous detail in order to try and make it a Christmas that you won't forget, in order to try and pass on her legacy to her children. And I suppose it's understanding the finite nature of life and knowing that because of death, you have to make the most of your life while you still have it. And that is exactly what she's trying to do. She's understanding the risks that, oh, well, with terminal cancer, that you're going to die sooner if you get the coof. So, well, yes, but it's worth it. Because there are fates worse than death, of course. And having to be isolated, not seeing your family, especially this time of year, is one of them. So, she would rather face that risk, of course, after due to be having surgery back in March, but because of that, of course, well, she's not gonna be around for many more months because of people like Matt Halfcock's policies. So yeah, he's breaking down in tears over the vaccination. So, well, have you considered how many tens of thousands of people have died because of your decisions? I guess not. Numbers on a page, Matt. Numbers on a page. But moving on to try and pick something more joyful. In a minute, I forgot what came next. Sorry. In a moment. Welcome, Orbital. Nice to see you again. Still missing the N. I guess N's not allowed.
My God, that's good.
Broadband connections being funny. Yes, we've had a few issues here as well with our broadband. It's been a nightmare. Say that. So I do apologise for that. We're doing what we can though. All other devices on airplane mode and all that. So you might remember from Ireland, I believe. Oh no, sorry. This one was Milton Keynes. There we go. When there was at the crematorium, the funeral was taking place, and a man had died, and his family were there, including his widow. And as his body was being committed to the flames, that his widow found it all a bit much and started to cry, as you would expect. And so their son there saw that, noticed that, and moved over in order to try and comfort her. And so did a couple more people at the time, but that wasn't really appreciated by the staff of the venue, who then walked in rather briskly and abruptly and ordered people to maintain their distance again, just to ensure that the widow could not feel any residual love or comfort at her husband's funeral. Just to really twist the knife, if you will. And since then, the man in question, that the son, has admitted that being berated for that has left him in a dark place, and he questions why he didn't challenge crematorium staff. And this will be true for all of us, to a lesser extent, that we will face difficulties in a way, but things based off almost malicious intent. And if you're not used to it, if you do not know what you're looking for, then you'll just be swept up in it and you will not object until it is too late. So again, it comes back to knowing your philosophy, knowing it accurately and precisely, so that if somebody does cross that line, then you stand up and you speak up immediately, and you do not have this regret afterwards. As they say, that it's better to live with the pain of failure than the pain of regret. But it's something that Les Brown, the motivational speaker, says, that there was an elderly woman that he knew. Actually, you could just hear the pain in her voice, saying, if I had my life to live over again, then I know that I would have done things differently. And it's exactly the same for Craig Bicknell here. That you might think it's overdoing it by saying you've got to stand up to tyranny in this instance. But in a scenario like that, I think it's getting pretty close to that kind of level. It really is. And they said it's left him in a dark place as well and trying to deal with it. And put simply, no, you don't have to put yourself through that. You don't have to just go along with it and then kind of question it afterwards. You know going into it what your intention is. And if other people do not understand, then by all means you can explain it to them. But you don't have to stand for this. That other people who have no idea who you are, do not understand you whatsoever, will not have your best interests at heart. They will have their own best interests at heart. Meaning you have to safeguard your own. Because if you don't, you will be taken advantage of and walked over, and you will have to live with the consequences of not standing up for what you believe in, not them. You've just cowered to tyranny, thus encouraging them to do it against other people. So, for your sake and those that come after you, speak up, Speak up.
And also, just remember that we're all people and we're all going through difficult times, and why would you make someone's life all the more difficult in that situation? Wouldn't you remember your human side as opposed to think about what the government wants you to do, which is to split people up to observe social distancing? You have to remember that we are people, and this is a very sad, tragic thing, and you just need to be there for this. You don't have to behave like this. It's not against the law to be human.
Although it's quickly coming that way.
Yeah.
Moving on. We'll try and get the more serious stuff out of the way first, and we'll end with a man walking 450 kilometres. But before then, police charged 32 men from West Yorkshire with more than 150 child sex offences against 8 teenage girls as young as 13. From West Yorkshire. And of course, you'll see this kind of thing if you follow We Got a Problem on YouTube. With that in mind, you know immediately that these 32 men from West Yorkshire are not 32 men from West Yorkshire. What do I mean by that? Well, this is what we've seen, as the offences allegedly took place between 1999 and 2012, so this isn't a new phenomenon in terms of just the last few years. No, it isn't. Instead, if you wish to know who the men are that are charged, these beautiful British names from West Yorkshire: Asif Ali, Amir Ali Hussein, Safraz Miraz, Nassam Hussein, Mohammed Nassam Nasir, Machine Nadat, Michael Birkinshaw. Hey, we've actually got a British name here. What a cunt. Revoke citizenship. Zafar Qayyum, Jabbar Qayyum, Ansar Mahmud Qayyum. It's a real family affair here. Mohammed Tasif Hanif, Ali Hussein Shah, Salim Mohammed Nasir, Amran Mehrban, Abraham Pandor, Shakil Daji, Mohammed Imran Zadar, Zakut Yassin, Amjad Hussein, Azuk Hussein, Safar Iqbal, Nassar Iqbal, Bilal Mahmud Patel, Kurum Razik, Irfan Khan, Omar Farouk Hussein, Safraz Hussein Reyaz, Ramiz Chima, Nasir Hussein, Mohammed Shathir, Sajad Hussein, Yasir Ali, who apparently are locals to the area. Well, no, as you see, they've all got rape offences, and there's trafficking as well, and drugs are involved, exactly, as you'd expect. The girls involved will likely not be saved by the police, but instead say, well, they were asking for it. They knew what they were doing, and in fact, they were the ones trafficking other girls, and they were just drug addicts, seeing as that's how the police have responded before. But hey, although it's not many, just 32 men, we do hope we report on these things in order to try and show that there is hope, and encourage the police and the justice system to do the right thing and actually keep this moving on. Just putting that update out there. But, if you do try and say that maybe Britain is better for the British, then do bear in mind that people like Labour's Kate Green, who are very anti-English, will have a thing or two to say. Saying offensive empire honours titles must go, says Labour's Kate Green. That yes, including empires in British Empire in the honours is offensive, and therefore it must go. It apparently is not actually showing the British heritage as the game changer that we were on the global stage, and how we brought forward Enlightenment values and made the world a far better place, brought people out of poverty, gave them opportunities, put in important infrastructure into countries like India, and brought them into the modern age, so that now India have all those call centres they can use to scam Westerners. No, it's not that at all. Instead, it's, well, Britain had colonies. It's like, right, what happened in those colonies? It's like slavery. It's like, right, so we invented slavery? It's like, no, it was happening long before that. I mean, the Vikings did it to the British ever before the British did it to somebody else. But we just ignore that. Okay, so then the Britons introduced slavery over to Africa. No, the Africans were... they already had slavery before that, looking back at ancient Egypt, of course. And instead, the British people just bought slaves from Africans. So, right, but Britain was the only country to do it. Well, no, the Islamic Empire has been doing it a long time as well. It started before British did it, and it's continuing on today. It's just they don't have a big black population because they castrate them, because they treat them like dogs. Right, but the British Empire is bad because it's bad.
Well, I just think that when you disregard anything positive that anything's done, it's a very slippery slope. And as we say, even one of the suggestions on the screen right now is teach British Empire and justice in schools. So, what do you think are they going to teach the children? Are they going to teach them about everything good that has come out of this, or are they going to teach everything bad? Well, it's going to be everything bad, and then it's just indoctrination going down to our next generation.
And we've also seen that in places like Rodin, of course, that I covered a couple of days back, about, yes, that instead it's supposed to be a more global view of history, but it's not. It's just teaching, again, Britain, bad, foreign, good. So, well, if you really think that way, leave. And it really is that simple, that if other places are doing things significantly better than Britain, then leave. And you find, well, oh, okay, but they need some different values in order to do better. So, oh, I see. So, hang on a minute. You want to take your values from your country to another one? Well, isn't that colonization? I thought you said that was bad. Surely these other countries must be perfect in their own right. Just as nation states, it seems as if the nation state is being held sacrosanct. Oh, but no, of course, because of open borders. So, right, in which case you need some sort of gelling ideology in order to keep people together to stop them from arguing, which has to come from one initial nation, in which case, again, you've got an empire. There's no winning. There isn't any winning. So, yes, of course, they're trying to say, oh, that she said, you can't justify that branding. Well, yes, you can. The British Empire was a force for good and ended slavery as well, among other things. So it is actually a great honour to receive such an honour. They do have a fair point, though, moving on to say that what it's become is just a political thing. That it's just saying, they're saying that Boris Johnson, Theresa May, David Cameron and Tony Blair have all been criticised for using the honour system to reward political allies and people who have given money to the parties. So she said, I know many efforts have been made to democratise and open up that honour system, but it's still pretty hierarchical of who gets that. Conservative Party co-chairwoman Amanda Milling said, the names given to our national honours reflect this country's history and traditions. We should not abandon them, just as we shouldn't rename the Victoria Line, the Royal Albert Hall, or the Imperial War Museum, or tear down the countless public monuments, statues and landmarks that tell the story of our United Kingdom. To do so would be an act of cultural and historic vandalism. And yes, there are good points from both sides. One is that we're not going to get rid of our history because it is what made us who we are. If you wish to put in some qualifiers or some warnings, then by all means do so for things like the statues or monuments, or keep them in a museum. Sure. But on the flip side, yeah, the honours do seem to just be for politicking, and they're not actually for the so-called reflection of this country's history and traditions. That they don't mean nearly as much as they used to, but that tends to be the way with awards, that they're co-opted by people pushing an agenda instead of respecting excellence in any given field, like the Oscars as well, of course. But what does Africa do without an empire? Terrorism. Not quite sure, actually. This is more likely to be Islam, just like we covered a couple of weeks ago. But they do try and say at the end of the article here that no group has yet said it carried out the raid on the school in Katsina, which is far from Boko Haram's usual area of operation in the northeast. They didn't mention Boko Haram, the last one, because of course it's Islamic, and you can't be saying that Islam motivated people to enact atrocities and mass murders. But if one happens and no Islamic group has taken responsibility, then you can mention those Islamic groups, and that is the way that the BBC runs. So, exactly what happened here? Well, hundreds of students are feared missing after gunmen raided a secondary school in northwestern Nigeria. The attackers arrived on motorbikes and started shooting into the air, causing people to flee. They targeted the government science secondary school, where more than 800 students are said to reside, in Katsina State on Friday evening. On Saturday, the military said it had located the government's hideout in a forest and exchanged gunfire with them. The outcome was unclear, but officials said there were no reports of students being injured. Meanwhile, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari condemned the attack and ordered the school to carry out a full audit of students to find out how many are missing. Parents who dashed to the school to take their children home were also asked to notify the school authorities. Residents living near the all-boys boarding school in Kinkara area told the BBC they heard gunfire at about 11 o'clock on Friday and that the attack lasted for more than an hour on a school What kind of defences are the schools putting up? I mean, that's quite good for a school to last a siege for an hour, at least. It sounds that if they were fighting back, I mean, I doubt they were. It's probably just incompetence from the Muslims, which is what we've come to expect. But this kind of thing, going for an attack on education, of course, because it's modern technology, which Islam does not permit, and this kind of breakdown in communication and acceptance and tolerance is kind of leading the way in what we can expect in other countries around the world, including our own, if we wish to submit to such barbaric ideology and allow it to run rampant in our otherwise more libertarian, classical libertarian ideology and values of tolerance and understanding and acceptance. But on the note of things you can't say, from the Lotus Eaters, YouTube bans criticism of the 2020 election. So they've released a blog post which you actually had to trawl through to kind of find. It's not just been sent out to all of us. No. Instead, you have to do some journalism in order to find it, and now it's being reported on. So they say, we will start removing any piece of content uploaded today or any time after that misleads people by alleging the widespread fraud or errors change the outcome of the 2020 US presidential election. For example, we will remove videos claiming that a presidential candidate won the election due to widespread software glitches or counting errors. We will begin enforcing this policy today and will ramp up in the weeks to come. According to Tim Pool, who said that he clarified this with YouTube, it's that it's kind of one or the other. You could say widespread fraud took place, but you can also say that Donald Trump is the rightful winner, but you can't say both. You can't say then that widespread fraud took place, which means Trump is the actual winner. So it's a little bit convoluted, but of course explains why I've been trying to stave off the US election recently. We all know my position. If it was the flip side, can you mention for many, many years the Russia hoax and the false Russian collusion narrative that was the Kremlin put Trump in the White House? Yes, of course you can. But when it's against a candidate that they endorse and they like, YouTube is showing no illusions of following Section 230 and being a publisher. Sorry, being a platform, and instead it is taking these editorial decisions in order to be a publisher.
Well, yeah, it just seems to, as we saw in the last podcast that we did, that they are limiting the conversations you can have with people in person, and now they're also limiting that online and deliberately changing the narrative to support a particular person as opposed to another person. And I think that's very dangerous, and we don't know where it's going to lead, particularly with conservatives speaking online, and what kind of platform will emerge for conservative videos to come out, because we obviously have Parler for, I suppose, like a Twitter sort of platform for conservatives, but where's the next conservative YouTube going to be?
You'd have to use BitChute, that's out of England, or Dailymotion, which is out of France, or maybe even Odyssey, and I'm not sure much about that particular platform though.
They probably won't be as big as YouTube though, so you still have that hurdle.
Not yet, and I think that's also why YouTube is kind of encouraging the prohibition of Section 230, because of course it knows that it will be protected essentially due to its size, and it'll be able to squeeze out its competitors. It's what we see quite often, which is what enables monopolies to form and retain their monopoly. So at the moment, of course, there is a bit of concern about Google and YouTube in particular, and their particular views. So there is competition trying to form in order to take part of its lion's share of its audience or consumer base. And therefore, instead of YouTube deciding to shape up and think, oh shit, well, we're going to lose out some of our clients and therefore our revenue, we've got to change our practices. Instead, they just decide to try and get the law involved, and that's lobbying. So again, as I've said time and time before, monopolies cannot exist without government involvement.
They're also interfering with the ad system, aren't they? I think.
Yeah.
So if they demonetize you, they can still run ads on your channel and they profit from it. But also there was something to do with just ads in general, you're not going to get paid as much anymore, or something was changing with the ads.
Yeah, well, essentially, that they can put ads on your videos and get paid even if you don't want them to, even if you opt out of the partnership program, even if you're demonetized because you're too controversial. What does that mean? It means that although there are some people that would still get paid for the advertisements played before, during, or after their videos, because now they've got such a wider or such a larger number of creators and videos that they can put adverts on, it's going to decrease the value of your particular videos that you're getting paid for, in which case they can pay you less because
they can.
Yeah, exactly. That why would they pay you at all if they're saying that they don't have to?
And it's less power to particular individuals, and they keep all the power to themselves, so you can't control us.
Great reset, I suppose. So, with that in mind, and trying to control people and put them into a particular thought pattern, you gotta love what's come out from American cult expert Steve Hassan, who is the author of The Cult of Trump. And these things are always delightful. They're always a lot of fun when it comes down to seeing what the left say is how you've got to be afraid of the right. And then just play it right back at them. You really can. So we're going to skip the preamble, who cares? And instead we're going to put right down to what he says defines a cult. So as part of his work, Mr. Hassan developed the BITE model, which helps to determine if an organization is in fact a destructive cult. In order to be classified as such, the actions of the group must fit 4 main criteria: behavior control, information control, thought control, emotional control. So, behavioral control, telling you where you can live, red or blue state, with whom you can live with, who you can be associate with, or who you have to cut off. Censorship, yeah. Who you can have sex with, let's not be transphobic, what clothing, what hairstyles, what diet you can have, no meat for you, how much sleep you get, and how much financial exploitation. Communism. Information control, keeping people very busy, you've got to be addicted to your phones, controlling them through their cell phones, exactly, texting, calls, internet tracking, welcome back YouTube, use of confession, and I know Peterson mentioned that with Dostoevsky's take on the Soviet Union, that for whatever reason, they wouldn't just pick their political enemies and kill them, but instead they would have to run them through a kangaroo court and a mock trial until they do confess. That they seem to have a twisted sense of morality that, well, we can't kill an innocent person, therefore they have to confess. But if we arrest somebody, then they're going to confess, and they will torture them until they do so. So there is still a confession, and therefore they're not killing anybody who doesn't deserve it by their own admission. They are confessing, and therefore they are guilty. And it's the same thing with, with so many people that, of course, you can't host the Oscars if you made some gay jokes over a decade ago. That's not acceptable. And it's cancel culture, essentially, which is what they're pointing out here. That is the use of confession. You've got to apologise for all your sins, and then you purity spiral, and nobody's good enough. So then finding out about people's pasts, exactly, especially if they've been traumatised, like sexual abuse. And then whose fault was that? But is that just sexual liberation? Why call them paedophiles when they can be maps? Thought control. It is typically very black and white, good versus evil, us versus them, and that's been a thing for a while now, that the left think the right are evil, whereas the right think the left are just misguided. They'll use loaded language, loaded terminology to control people's thoughts. Yeah, eat the rich, how's that? You're not allowed to ask critical questions, and if you are, there's behaviour control like shunning or threats. Again, this comes down to censorship, and that you're not allowed to ask particular questions. If you do, then you're just a shill, or a hack, or a troll, or a Russian agent. And they will not actually answer these questions. They'll just say, you can't be serious, and this person's being silly, or they're aggressive, and they won't address what's being said. And they'll have to lead you down a particular line of thought, instead of say, well, how about you go do your own research and decide for yourselves? And if I'm wrong, please bring that information to me, and I will update the record accordingly. And that's not what you see over there at all. And then emotional control. People are first love-bombed, which means they are made to feel really special and unique and wonderful. So people are flattered and praised, but really it is just a device to get people more involved, to spend more money, to do things beyond what they're consciously conscience or what their morality is telling them to do, if they don't do what they're told, then terrible things are going to happen to them. So when someone is mind controlled in a cult, they can't imagine leaving the group and still feeling happy and fulfilled. Which is, again, what we see with things like Extinction Rebellion or the Black Lives Matter movement. That these are just essentially cults. I mean, the writers try to be nice by saying that left is just a godless religion, but going by Stephen Hassan, a left-leaning cult expert, that is just a cult. It really is. And of course, with the cult of Trump, if you will, that was all just an attack piece in order to discredit opposition, not based on any reasonings or evidence, but just to push you down a particular narrative so that you don't question what they're doing. So again, with anything like this, when it comes out of them that they're actually trying to apply principles or morals, look into them, address them, and you can use them to destroy themselves, as is always the case. So that is why I encourage everybody to look into what they're saying, in order to say, well, have they got something worthwhile to say? So, oh, actually, this sounds like something you should be concerned with. Where should the concern be pointed? And it's as simple as that. Say, who is most susceptible? Basically, people who think they're too smart to be in a cult. Hang on. Think they're too smart to be in a cult? Like, university graduates? You don't say. Oh, it just gets better and better.
Well, you can talk about that in terms of COVID as well. Can you say that COVID is a cult, or the way that people talk about COVID is a cult? I don't know. You can say that. You can also say that about the communism coming out these couple of weeks.
But that's a good point with COVID, especially with the behaviour control.
Yeah, everything really. So behavioural control, they tell you that you can't really
Live with people.
You can't live with people, you can't have sex with people, you can't do anything. Hairstyles, you can't get a haircut because the hairdressers are closed. Then information control, obviously they're telling you with the track and trace thing that they're chasing you down, or you have to isolate for 14 or now 10 days, so you can't go out, so they'll track you down.
And you can't share conspiracies. Oh no.
Thought control, obviously you can't talk about it in a way that you question the narrative that is currently presented. You can't trust doctors or nurses who are also against the vaccine, and how dare you for 1 second suggest that the vaccine has something to do with bad things. And then emotional control, you're killing granny, so stay home. This is a cult.
If you don't want to kill Granny, then make sure at Christmas she's with the window open. Just there getting drafty and cold, because that's not going to be any problem whatsoever.
And make sure no one gets their surgery.
Moving on. We've got such good technology that you could track down terrorists or rapists or pedophiles or grooming gangs, and you could actually find them and arrest them and detain them and put these criminals away. That's what you could do. You know what they're going to do instead? Well, as we see here, football fan facing lifetime ban from championship side for booing players who took a knee, with clubs using CCTV to single out supporters who jeer gesture. So yeah, you don't like communism? That doesn't matter, because what they're saying is, well, this clearly just stands for racial equality and nothing else. I mean, look at what the words say. It says Black Lives Matter. You're clearly misunderstanding the movement. So, you went on their own website and saw that it says that it's a political movement by their own admission. You're misunderstanding what they mean. Like, fuck off, you cunt. How can somebody so ignorant then proclaim that other people are ignorant? I think it's just a stunning example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And, of course, that Might is right, that they will use this in order to target anybody. So, essentially, they do a thing, and there's pushback. Instead of thinking, oh, maybe we should look into this. It's like, no, let's just push the narrative harder. And then we'll just detain people who disagree with us, because that's what reasonable people do. X'd out on that. Very hard X'd out. But that's it. So it's the first of many, I fear. But what does that actually mean? Figuratively or pragmatically speaking, well, it means that their fans will be lost because, hey, the fans won't want to put up with this. Why would they? In which case, they will not have anybody supporting them or watching their games because politics has got involved. It happened to a lesser extent with the NFL not so long ago in America, trying to end domestic abuse. So, well, yeah, I'm sure we can all agree with that. And as Bill Burr was saying, it's like, who do you think you're persuading? That there's some guy who's slamming his wife's head in the drawer because she left the can open and wet and it's gonna get rusty. And then just see it. Oh, I'm so sorry, darling. I didn't realize I shouldn't been hitting you all these years. Thank goodness that the NFL says that hitting your wife is bad. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Have I done that so much? Oh, I didn't know. Thank goodness the NFL is here to explain to me what I've been doing wrong. That's Bill Burr's take on it. I said, well, yeah, that's a good point. It seems as if that's what they're actually suggesting. So it's like here, it's like, oh yeah, racism is bad. It's like, oh, is it? Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned it. It's like skin color doesn't actually matter. Oh my god, you mean that if somebody's got a tan, they haven't got a lot more stupid? I had no idea. That's so good. We should treat people as individuals. No, hang on, you're going a bit far there. No, not as individuals. We've still got to group them based on race. It's just the darker the better. Oh, I see. Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, they're going to lose all their supporters. Go, get woke, go broke. And fuck off. So, did you want to add anything to that?
Of course, being woke means that you're not going broke because the only businesses working right now are the Hollywood elite, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, thinking of that you probably saw in California with the female who was trying to comply with Newsom's orders with her outdoor dining, and then the filming crew set up not so far away. If you do want to learn more about that, Patrick Bet-David of Valuetainment did an interview with her and another gentleman from Michigan, kind of comparing and contrasting their two experiences. So by all means, go check that out. He has been able to secure an interview with her on his not quite podcast channel, but his channel that he's now doing interviews with, the same one that he's interviewed mobsters and gangsters on.
But of course, the response was, well, no, we're just trying to comply with the guidelines. There's nothing odd about this at all.
Yeah, and Newsom's response was appalling, saying, well, yeah, I know it's so difficult, and I'm sorry that you have to go through this, but hey, we've seen cases going up, so it would be bad if people die, and hey, the places that you're complaining about, well, they're essential workers, and you're not, so you're not important. Shut the fuck up, we're doing this for your own good. It's like, Gavin.
That last bit was inferred.
Gavin. Yeah, Gavin wouldn't be that blunt. Off you fuck. Onto the scrap heap. Leave us alone. But more things you can't say. Chalk ice. Don't call people a chalk ice. Alright? Just because somebody melts under pressure, they're a bit delicate, and they don't want to do their work properly, they're not a chalk ice.
Sweet.
Aww. Maybe he was actually flirting. Why Detective Chief Inspector is fired after calling black colleague a chalk ice after they asked to work from home during COVID. DCI Stuart Miller stormed out of the misconduct hearing, who was told he was to be dismissed immediately from a senior position without notice. Oh, sorry, we just popped out. We've popped back in. We're back in.
We're very much behind what we're talking about, so I'm not sure how it's doing in the stream time.
Well, it's normally 30 seconds. So it's fine.
Well, this one's several articles ago.
Keep up.
I'm just letting you know.
I'll have to check this afterwards. Do apologise for any inconvenience. Yeah. So June 8th, he called a colleague a chalk ice and more middle class than I am. The comment was made when DCI Miller was in charge of the COVID response. So essentially, over 2 decades of work ended with 2 words. So don't call people a chalk ice. Because on June 8th, the officer, who was trained in counter-terrorism and kidnap, was asked if a lower-ranking colleague could work from home due to concerns his ethnicity was more susceptible to the virus. The virus is racist! Although it could be because lack of vitamin D, essentially. But for whatever, don't hear that mentioned much. Because saying you need more vitamin D means you have to go outside, and we can't be having that.